I never loved my older sister. Maybe once in childhood I tried. Maybe at some point we even played together, shared candy, and slept in the same room. But all of that ended the day she stole my money and spent it on her boyfriend. Not on the family. Not on our dad. Not on something important, but on brand name clothes for some guy who eventually left her anyway. Since then, I couldn't look at her without feeling that heavy coldness inside. I didn't scream. I didn't cause scenes. I just erased her. She was there, but as if from another world, distant, hollow, a world without real love or care. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. Life there was quiet, simple, and often very hard. My father worked long shifts as a warehouse supervisor, sometimes 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He did everything he could to support our family and never once complained. He was the kind of man who fixed broken pipes himself, mowed the elderly neighbor's lawn because she couldn't, and always made sure we had food in the fridge and gas in the car. But one thing I noticed again and again, every evening as he sat down in his old armchair, he would let out a tired sigh and glance toward the corner of the room where a stack of dusty fishing magazines lay untouched. He loved fishing. Not just as a hobby, but as a part of himself he had long since set aside. He used to tell me stories of when he was a teenager, waking up before dawn, driving north with his father to a quiet lake, bringing sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, and spending the whole day by the water. He no longer had the time, or the money. Every time he flipped through catalogs filled with shiny rods, foldable chairs, and waterproof tents, he would shut them quietly and say, "Maybe someday." But I didn't want it to be someday. I wanted it to be now. I was 14 when I started saving money. No one would give me a real job, but I could bake. At first, it was just cookies for school events, then brownies for our neighbor's church group. Later, birthday cakes for teachers and cupcakes for school fairs. Word spread quickly about my desserts. Soon I had regular clients. Teachers placing weekend orders, moms texting me for holiday treats. I even made flyers and handed them out at school. My mom knew about it, but we kept it a secret. She thought I was saving up for a new phone or a trendy jacket, but I had other plans. Every dollar I earned, I hid. I had an old Converse shoebox lined with parchment paper, taped shut, and shoved deep under my mattress. I kept a notebook where I logged every sale. $5 for banana bread, $10 for a dozen cookies, $20 for a birthday cake. Week by week, the amount grew. I researched prices, bookmarked links to fishing gear, a good rod, a decent tent, waterproof clothing. I even planned a weekend trip with my uncle who had a pickup truck and agreed to help with the surprise. I had almost the full amount. I was just about $50 short. And then, one day, the box was gone. It was a Thursday. I came home from school exhausted, a history quiz and 2 hours of cupcake deliveries. Out of habit, I reached under the bed. The box wasn't there. I froze. For a full minute, I just stared at the empty space, hoping it would magically appear. My hands started shaking. I flipped the mattress, pulled out drawers, checked the closet, under the rug, behind the books. Nothing. Gone. I walked into the kitchen. My older sister was sitting there, casually scrolling through her phone, tapping the screen with her freshly manicured nails. In the corner were shopping bags, a new hoodie with the logo of her boyfriend's favorite band, sneakers that cost at least $100, perfume, lip gloss, all designer. And none of it was in our budget. You didn't have to be Sherlock to figure it out. She had always been like that. Selfish, shallow, living in a fantasy world where everything revolved around her and her boyfriend. She was 17 and thought she was in love with Alex. She believed he deserved the best, even if it came at someone else's expense. I stormed into the kitchen, consumed by rage and pain. My sister was sitting at the table like nothing had happened. Around her, piles of shopping bags, clothes, shoes, makeup. Everything was new, expensive, and, as I realized instantly, bought with my money. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't quiet. I didn't hold back. The fury poured out. I grabbed the first bag I could reach, pulled out a hoodie, the one with the band logo her boyfriend loved, and hurled it across the room. The sneakers followed. A bottle of perfume hit the floor and shattered, filling the kitchen with a sickly sweet scent that made me nauseous. I don't remember everything I did after that. I think I tore one of the sweaters in half, swept all the makeup onto the floor, stomped on the shoebox until it collapsed. I didn't care. This wasn't just anger. It was despair. Destroying it all felt like the only way to defend what I had been building. Like it was my last chance to reclaim something. My sister jumped up, lunged at me. Her eyes were full of fury. She screamed, threw things back. We nearly collided, only a few steps apart. I could already see her balling her fists. That's when Mom rushed into the kitchen. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her voice was the only thing that stopped us. She looked at us like she no longer recognized who we were, her daughters or two strangers on the verge of tearing each other apart. But as always, she didn't take sides. Mom never knew how to choose. She quietly cleaned up the spilled perfume, gathered the torn clothes, and went back to her room. Her silence was louder than any scream. We stood there, breathing heavily, like fighters in a ring. Tears were streaming down my face. Everything I had worked for was gone. All those early mornings, dough under my nails, burns from the oven, aching fingers, reduced to nothing. And not because I made a mistake, but because my own sister decided that her boyfriend's wants mattered more than our father's dream. A man who had sacrificed everything for both of us. The worst part? She knew exactly what that money was for. She had seen me researching gear. She had asked me why I was looking at tents in the middle of summer. I had told her everything, and she simply didn't care. The next day at school, I couldn't hold it in. I don't even remember what triggered me exactly, but I went off on her by the lockers. I said everything. People watched. She rolled her eyes, told me I was being dramatic, that it was just money. And something inside me broke. I shoved her. She shoved back. Teachers pulled us apart. We both ended up in the principal's office. Our parents were called in. That evening was the worst. Mom cried. Dad said nothing. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen while I sat at the table, sobbing, telling them everything. I explained how hard I'd worked, how carefully I'd planned it all. My sister didn't even apologize. She just said, he wouldn't have used it anyway. But Dad, he came over, sat beside me, and placed his hand on my shoulder. He said, you were thinking of me. That means more than any gift. I never forgot those words. They didn't bring the money back, but they taught me something. Love is real even when plans fall apart. Years passed. My sister married Alex, big wedding, expensive dress, honeymoon in Florida, all on credit. 4 years later, he cheated and left. She moved back into our childhood home with 2 kids and no job. And our parents, the kind-hearted people they've always been, took her back without a word. And me? I got into college, earned a scholarship, kept baking, became a teacher. Not rich, but stable. Every Father's Day, I sent my dad something fishing-related. A new tackle box, some gear, a thermos. He started going on trips with his old buddies. He started living the dream he'd once buried. And my sister? She still lives in that same house. One day, she asked why I never gave her gifts. Not for birthdays, not for Christmas. She said it with that fake hurt in her voice, as if I owed her something. I no longer felt the need to be nice. I was honest with her. And finally, with myself. I didn't justify. I just said what had been sitting inside me all those years, plain and without mercy. I told her she didn't understand priorities, that all her life she chose strangers over her own, that buying her boyfriend a gift mattered more to her than supporting the father who had lived his entire life for us, that she didn't know the value of parents because she never learned to appreciate the people who were truly there for her. And people like that, they don't deserve gifts. They don't deserve gratitude or respect. I told her if she wanted a birthday present, she could bake cupcakes, sell them, save Spend her own money, not someone else's. That would be fair. Nobody owed her anything. And at the end, I told her this. You need to know who's yours and who's not. Because strangers come and go, but the people who are truly yours, they stay. They can't be replaced. They are one of a kind. They are everything. Because betrayal fades, but the empty space it leaves behind, that stays forever.